Can you hear us, Jessica and Emily?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
good.
I can hear you.
Perfect.
You did it. Good job. Audrey, I can't hear you anymore. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just figuring out the recording and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Adrian's right over my shoulder helping me.
Oh, okay. They're talking to us.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Hi, guys.
Hello. There you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sorry I'm a little late. I just have a packed schedule today. Hi. Have you
Hello.
already gavelled the meeting in, or should we start?
We need to start.
Okay. I can't hear you, Emily. I mean, Audrey, I can't hear you.
That's okay. I was talking to Adrian and myself.
Oh, okay. All right, let's bring the meeting to order. Let me bring up my agenda here. Hi, everyone. Have 3 different systems running here, and I am not the wizard at going back and forth between things. So let's go ahead and start the meeting. And once again, we always start the meeting with our vision statement: to develop, advance, and nurture all facets of the arts to enhance the quality of the Meridian of life for Meridian residents and its visitors. So that just kind of sets the tone, and we'll go ahead with the roll call. I know Lizzie couldn't attend today. We're looking forward to her being able to join us again very soon. Jessica,
Present.
Natalie,
Here.
Bonnie,
Present.
I'm here, Maria, Jennifer,
Present.
hi, Thomas,
Present.
Rhea.
Present.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. And is Joe going to be able to join us today, Audrey? Have you heard?
Repeat the question, please.
Oh, sorry. Was Joe going to be able to join us today?
I haven't heard from him, so I
Okay.
don't think so.
Right. Busy time of year. Okay. With that done, we would consider the agenda and adoption so that we could go forward with the meeting, unless there's anything to be brought up that needs to be added or changed with a reason to do so.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the agenda for the meeting.
Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. All right, good. So we have the meeting minutes from August and October. So we all get them digitally. If there's anything to be brought up for clarification, we would consider that now. If not, we would consider a motion to approve the minutes. Hearing no points to be brought out for consideration, do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes of the meeting for August and October as written.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. I really should give a little bit longer in this format, shouldn't I, for all in favors? Because it's like kind of comes in a rolling cascade of motions. Okay, so we have new business, approval of the monthly financial statement. Audrey, could you take us through that? Seems
Madam
pretty straight
Chair.
up. Mhm.
Madam Chair, like in August or in our meeting in October, this is our new fiscal year. We're in fiscal year 2021, which started on October 1st. So you'll see we haven't had any expenses yet, but those expenses will roll in through the year. So there is no changes.
Okay, great. Good, good. Are there any questions from commissioners? Need any clarification on anything? If not, we would consider a motion.
Hi,
Sure.
Madam Chair, I
Tom,
move. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Tom moves to accept.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, that time I waited. It's kind of like a chorus of ayes. It's kind of fun, actually. So moving on, we do have a topic proposal, the arts diversity in Meridian, to discuss today. Jessica brought this to our attention, and I think it's really, really a wonderful thing to consider and to take this on. What we need to do today is talk about the context and the scope of how we think the Arts Commission could represent diversity in what we reach out for and what we produce as an Arts Commission. So, Jessica, would you like to just speak to that a little bit since you brought it to our attention? Keeping it in scope.
Sure. So I'm sure I've sort of brought this up before, and I think the Public Art Subcommittee has heard me talk about this before as well. But you know, I think it's important for us to talk about how we want to, I guess, better engage with greater diversity of artists. So that includes, you know, our diversity or lack of diversity as a commission, as well as, you know, finding ways to reach out to artists from different backgrounds and communities throughout the Treasure Valley, and make sure that their voices are heard, that their perspectives are represented, that they are, you know, that we be sure to include them as part of the art community in Meridian. And there are many ways that we can do that. We have started with the Public Art Subcommittee by making sure that we reach out to a lot of different groups and organizations for our mural project. But perhaps, you know, public art is not the only thing that we do, although it kind of feels like it sometimes. So what are other ways that we as a commission can be more diverse in the activities that we do and the artists that we engage with and the art that we share in all forms.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think, you know, developing an idea of what diversity looks like in the arts, you know, maybe coming up with a discussion around what the benefits would be for the community would be great. I think art kind of leads a lot of discussions as far as diversity, especially in less diverse environments, and how to make it more, we have a challenge. We do have a challenge. And we could also look at some, coming out of that, look at some national and global approaches, just kind of to get an idea of what good things have been done. And then how we could bring, you know, use that example to make it work for our community and bring more diversity here. I think our goal today would be to decide if we want to continue this discussion and come up possibly with very specific things for each discussion, when we have it on our agenda, to come up with some really, get some input, possibly from resources that we could identify that could give us input into how to more accurately, and accurately, I don't want to say that. I want it to be accurate, but I want it to be also objective and subjective at the same time, you know. So come up with some experience and some expertise outside that could give us some counsel. What are the thoughts from the other board members as to whether you'd like to continue to define our scope of how we will approach this topic?
Madam Chair,
Oh.
I'm really glad that Jessica brought this up. This is an excellent idea, and I do have some ideas for resources to help us reach out, most especially because Meridian doesn't have as many of the resources as Boise, but schools are always a very great resource. They have kind of their fingers on the pulse of the community. And so that's one
good.
resource.
Thank you, Jennifer. Tom?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jessica, for bringing this up. And I'd like to share with the board, I'm on a couple of current different projects that the projects are embracing BIPOC and what that means to the theatrical, artistic, and musical industries. One of the projects is in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And there's currently New York City is establishing criteria, and it's public information, at least it hasn't been published yet, but it's not sensitive information. And I'm happy to share anything I learn on these other projects with the commission. And just to your point, Madam Chair, it could inform us, it could let us know what's happening in the rest of the world, particularly in the world of theater and music. But it also applies to the world of art.
Yes, thank you, Tom. There's so much going on in the world of theater and music with opera, especially. Opera is really Opera America is really working on that really in depth right now. Also, Americans for the Arts have put together some language that's a start. So I love that you're working on these projects and can bring that information to us from these sources that are working on it. And there are a lot of national sources. Jennifer, I love the idea of involving the schools, because I know that they do have approaches that they employ effectively with their student bodies. And so that's a great local resource that would give us an idea of how we could move forward. Thank you. Are there any other thoughts? And if not, we would consider, do we need to take action on this? Emily, are you here? Oh, there you are.
I am here.
Do we need to take action on this today in order to move forward?
No.
Okay.
No, this is a discussion about what kind of the commission's intention is with regard to this topic. So
Okay,
it's not necessarily an action item.
Okay, so thank you, Emily. So what I've gathered in this opening first short discussion is that our first steps will be to look for resources outside and look for resources locally that can inform our process. And it sounds like Tom has got some good ideas. I've got a few resources I could use and look at what's written already in the national resources, such as Opera America, Actors Equity Association. I know theatrically is working on it. Americans for the Arts. And we can also reach out to the Idaho Commission on the Arts and see what research they have already possibly put into this, and what that, to me, as far as the scope of this topic, would comprise a local resource. Are you comfortable with that designation, Emily? Does that, thinking the Idaho Commission on the Arts in this case as a local resource, does that make sense?
does to me.
Okay. I'm so excited about this. I want to thank you, Jessica. It's timely and it's exciting to think about how beautiful the arts can make and welcoming the arts can make a city look. A cityscape can be changed by this type of approach. And I've always felt that the arts have a privilege and somewhat of a responsibility to carry forward this type of socio-demographic development. I think it's so important. So
And Madam Chair.
Shut up now and let everybody else talk. Jessica.
Madam Chair, if I can just sort of expand on one thing you mentioned about Americans for the Arts. So they have a whole section on equity in the arts, and they have some draft language that organizations can use if they want to release a statement about equity in the arts. So I don't know if that's something that we want to pursue at some point, but there is some draft language that we can start with if we're interested in that.
I actually have that document living on my desktop right now. I've been looking at it lately and thinking what sections would work for us. I think as we go through this process and we reach out nationally, we reach out locally, and we reach out regionally as well. Maybe those 3 tiers of research. I'm sure, I know that Denver, the project that they do some interesting diversity work that includes more than just socio-demographic. It also includes environmental diversity, which I think is kind of part of this in some ways. So yeah, I think so. Regional, local, national, and international, let's not limit ourselves, I guess, if we're thinking about a planet. So this is exciting. I think as we take the right steps towards defining how we can apply this to our work as the Meridian Arts Commission, we're going to discover a lot of beauty in our environment and in a lot of beauty outside of it that we can look to as an example. So I'm excited about it.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
the other thing I'm excited about and encouraged by is that this commission in our city would be in front of this very important issue and not reactive to it. And
Yes.
It's not something that we will have to do as a mandate once these criteria are put into place nationally, because they are being formulated. And I am excited that we can be forerunners and perhaps as we develop this, set a benchmark that other cities our size would look to as an example.
I love that. That's a great point. Being out in front on an issue that's as important as this is definitive, I think, in the way we approach our work. So thank you. Any other comments? So I just will say that to everyone, kind of keep this running as a program all the time. If you come up with any ideas, jot them down. If you come across a resource that you think is helpful, that has good language, just remember, I know everyone is a volunteer and that everyone has lives outside of the Arts Commission. But if you keep that kind of running in the background all the time, you'll start to notice things just by having it there. And then just take time to jot it down and bring it to, I think the way we could use it first is to bring it to our subcommittees, to kind of have a way to have it be a little bit more focused, and then bring, once we've discussed that at subcommittee level, bringing it to the commission level and defining our agenda depending on what the subcommittees have discovered. Does that sound fair? Audrey?
Chair,
Mhm.
just a question. So the subcommittees will discuss how inclusion and diversity and equity in the arts is relevant to their projects, and then we'll bring it back together as a whole commission with the subcommittees discussing how this impacts their projects or what they can do in their projects.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Got it.
And the general resources will be for the commission. That, the application of the reaching out will be functioning with the subcommittees specific to what they're doing. The resources for coming up with a way to define our approach will be for all the commissioners, such as things that you find that you think, oh, that's great language. Maybe we can work with that. Gather those gems, gather those things that strike you, and we will bring them into the discussion. So, and as this develops, it will be obviously this is going to be a long process to make it focused enough to serve us well as a commission, and possibly to be a foundation, give some foundational language, like Tom said, to some other smaller cities that have similar demographics to lead out that way. So we will have it on the agenda. But sometimes if we don't have anything that we think is focused enough, we'll just take that item off and do it the next month when we have more focus to the scope. Does that make sense? Is that all right with Audrey, is keeping it as a rolling agenda item unless we don't have anything specific enough to add to the scope for that month? Is that making sense?
Madam Chair, yes, that makes sense. In thinking more about your suggestion about the subcommittees, do you think next month we can discuss it as a whole commission on pooling our resources and in discussing the resources so that then it can be dispersed to the subcommittee so that the commission is all on the same page?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think that's a perfect way to keep it on the agenda next month with a focus so that we keep moving towards our goal. Tom, did you have something? Oh, okay. You leaned forward. I thought.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just have a quick question on the thought about keeping this on the agenda. I think it's great to have it on the agenda every month.
Mhm.
What do you think about keeping it on the agenda regardless of whether something comes up in advance of the meeting, and then we can kind of touch on it and say, does anyone have anything to share? And if not, then we can move on if we don't have a specific plan for the topic. But what do you think about keeping it open as a short opportunity for folks to share anything that they've come up with that maybe hasn't been discussed in the subcommittee meetings, or something that they just came across like the day before and wanted to share? It doesn't need to be sort of a huge long discussion every month, but it seems like it might be good to keep it on our agenda every month, and then we can just move past it if there's nothing.
Okay, I think if we keep it, what you just said, keeping it focused on resources that have been identified. So we could keep it on as a rolling agenda item. Diversity, how can we word that? Diversity resources identified, so that we keep it focused on right now what we're working for is finding resources to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are the resources focused on kind of next steps for the Arts Commission, or is there, I guess we need to be somewhat specific in noticing the agenda so the public knows what the discussion is about. So what are the resources related to?
Oh, Tom, would you like to comment?
Thank you. I think, Madam Chair, the next step, I'd like to suggest that the next step is the resources at this point are to inform and educate so that we can develop a strategic plan moving forward. And so the gathering of information that is out there that we could then distribute to the commission and via the subcommittees And that could be a solid next step, is to further our education and exploration to be fully informed, to develop an action plan.
Okay. And that would focus it as, how could we put that as an agenda item that would define that that's the step we're focusing on right now with the diversity agenda item? Diversity resource development. Could that?
So I guess the objective, it sounds like, is, excuse me, Madam Chair, that
Oh, fine.
to develop a plan to, I guess, encourage diversity in the arts. And so then the agenda item would it be presentations or?
I think from time to time I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to think of a way to have, materials in the packet and have, get the public on board with what the discussion is going to be. I think the desire is to have kind of a more free range, informal discussion, but that's tough for noticing. So maybe it's not unworkable. It's just, it does help to focus the discussion on what are we talking about today. So I don't know how to help you do that. Maybe you almost need like a subcommittee to help develop that and bring that to the commission so that there's a more focused discussion at the commission level. And it's not completely necessary, but just some advanced preparation of materials to be discussed would provide better notice to the public.
Okay, right, because that's what we're working with, is needing to accurately notice this in the public, for the public meetings, so that the public knows what's going to be discussed. That's what we really need to do, especially I think when you have things that are on your agenda all the time. They need to be really understood in order to be properly noticed. Thank you, Emily. Subcommittee, why don't we do this today? Is everyone comfortable with this? We will consider forming a subcommittee meeting as our diversity topic next month. So we have that gives us some time. People can evaluate their time, see if they would have the time to, because I know some people, it's really hard to serve on 2 subcommittees. But I think you might be right. I think this might deserve a subcommittee of its own, especially since we're working towards adding some language to our strategic plan with this in mind. So how do people feel about that? Tom?
Certainly it might help. I just would hate to delay our process based on the establishment of another subcommittee. To Emily's point, is that would this facilitate would this facilitate Emily's question of, could we put an agenda item that says, at our monthly commissioner meetings, we are reviewing any information that's been submitted through proper channels, and we will review then to further inform and educate. Emily, does that answer your question?
The more specific, the better. So for example, the subcommittee reports, when it just says committee report, that doesn't provide much notice, but we kind of deal with that by having the packet with information that the public can look at and see what the report will be about. So likewise, that would help to have the information submitted to Leslie ahead of time, or Audrey, probably both, and get that in the packet so that the commission can prepare and the public can prepare. We don't have any public today, but if they wanted to participate, they would know what that was about. So we just need to provide some notice regarding what the commission is going to talk about. And two, it'll help keep the discussion moving for efficiency.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Tom. So to me, it seems like we're moving towards what we were talking about earlier about keeping this working in the background, noticing things, writing things down, gathering resources, and then submitting them to Audrey and myself in order to be able to get them on properly noticed as to material that will be presented on that agenda item for the meeting. Makes sense? How would we still title that agenda item? That's the question. Diversity research and development? Would that diversity, I don't come up with some, I'm not a legalese person, but we're trying to make sure that people understand that we will be presenting helpful resources that we are considering to use as resources to guide our process. So diversity.
Madam Chair, I think it's
Yeah.
okay to say something like diversity in the arts discussion, and then either colon topic of the article or whatever it is you're looking at, or just make sure it's linked. Audrey does an amazing job of putting this together. So you just opens the page and it's all there. So if you want to have a recurring discussion, I think you could just call it that. And at some point, I think you'll want to narrow it to an objective and next steps. But right now, it sounds like there's some interest in just having a discussion about what's out there and what other commissions and bodies are doing.
So Madam Chair,
Yes, Bonnie.
I don't know if it's necessary to have a subcommittee that would be an ongoing forever subcommittee, but maybe would the term better be like a task force that would develop the criteria for how we want to approach the diversity in the arts and how we could make that happen between the three subcommittees that are in existence right now for visual, performing, and public art.
I don't, Emily, how does a task force fit into the parameters of what we're doing? Would that still be considered legally a subcommittee? Can we retitle it? And it would be.
It is.
It would be.
It's not uncommon to call it that when it's kind of an ad hoc single topic sort of group, if it has that limited focus, but in effect it is a subcommittee.
Okay. Why don't we do this for now? Why don't we try for this month to have this be an information gathering month? Everybody look for resources, funnel them through to Audrey and I and Emily. Do you mind if we also, she smiles, to the three of us, and we will organize them into a discussion topic for the next month. Does that sound fair?
That sounds good.
Jessica, so are you all right with that process?
Madam Chair, I think that that's great. I think that I recognize that this is it's going to take time for us to kind of wrap our brains around how we want to approach this, and it's not just like there's no endpoint. It's something that we should be doing sort of in perpetuity, but I do think it would be good for us to identify sort of a shorter term goal, whether that's including something in our strategic plan, like a diversity section. I mean, I think that I haven't read the strategic plan recently, but I think it does kind of include diversity. But if we want to have a specific section about that, perhaps we could put together a subcommittee like we used to have a subcommittee for the strategic plan specifically. So maybe we want to get a temporary subcommittee together. And this is just me kind of throwing things out there. I certainly don't mean to dictate the process or the goal or anything like that. It's just sharing my thoughts. But you know, we're a group and we need to come together on this. But this is just a thought, was to put together a subcommittee that could work on sort of directing the discussion toward a strategic plan section, which then each of the other subcommittees could kind of then take and run with and put into action. But I do think, you know, I think I mentioned that I was serving for a while on the City of Meridian's diversity group called Unity Through Inclusion, which ended up kind of going grassroots and sort of petered out, I think, because it was sort of hard to identify one specific path or goal. And so I would suggest that if we can eventually identify a goal to work toward, it would help us focus our discussions in our meetings every month.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. I think what I'm hearing is that Bonnie brought up the idea of using the words task force as opposed to subcommittee, thus implying that and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that it is a temporary subcommittee to be developing something to language to put into the strategic plan that then can be referenced by the subcommittees as they do their due diligence in their specific disciplines. So I would be willing to serve on the task force. I think at this point, that's where it seems to be going to me. Does that sound fair to everyone? I'd be willing to serve on that task force.
If it's temporary, I would be willing to serve.
I too, I can, yes, I'd be happy
Okay,
to
how
serve.
many people can we have legally to be described? There we go, 4. Okay. So, Jessica, I think since you've started, if you have the time, once again, I understand that everyone's volunteering. Would you be willing?
Yes, absolutely. I'm trying not to dominate this conversation just because I brought up the idea. Yes, I'm happy to serve and would like to. What if we wanted to sort of all, this is a suggestion again, what if we wanted to kind of think about this and then develop an action item for our next meeting to establish this task force? Do we need to do that, Emily, or can we do it sort of informally today, or how does that process work?
I suggested that earlier, and Tom brought up a good point that does put us another month out. And this is something that we want to move quickly on if we can. And so why don't we go ahead? What we will decide today is that if everyone thinks that a task force is a good idea, we'll do that. And if you could send out, if in between the time, so on the agenda for next month, we will have, okay, let me ask you this. Can we put together a task force in between this meeting and the next, or do we need to wait? We can put together a task force in between, right?
Yes, Madam Chair, under your bylaws, you appoint the members of the task force. So you could appoint Jessica and Tom and Jennifer. And then they would work with Audrey to prepare an agenda and have that noticed. There's not really, I can't advise you to do it informally. It would still have to be noticed.
Okay. So let's do that. And that task force will start to work on what will develop into our next agenda item for this topic in our December meeting, which Yeah, that's actually a really good time to have this topic discussed. How does that sound? So from what I'm understanding, we're all kind of into the task force idea. We have volunteers, Jennifer, myself, Tom, and oh, we have 5 volunteers. I can't hear you.
It's okay.
I couldn't hear you. But Natalie,
Oh, yes.
what did you want to say?
Oh, I was just going to say I was going to volunteer too, but we're full. So that's good that everyone wants to be involved.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. It's very compelling and it's very current. So why don't we do this? We will get the task force assigned by the end of the week, appointed, and then we will start meeting to gather resources. So keep in mind, all the commissioners are going to be involved, because any resource that you find, you'll funnel to the task force, and they will start work on the language. Yes, I love that everybody wants to be involved. Which takes me back a step. Do we want to? It will slow us down a bit to work on this together as a commission. Do we want a task force? Or does everyone want to funnel information up? So there's 2 options. The task force, which would be a limited group that would work separately to be that funnel for the information and resources that then will be brought to the commission on the diversity topic agenda item each month. Or we could once again go back a step from that, have everyone bring their resources, shoot them through to me and Emily and Audrey to define what we would be discussing for the agenda item, and then we would all discuss together. It's 2 ways to do it. One's sleeker and faster. The other, everybody gets to be elbows into the work more from the beginning.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could maybe throw a suggestion out there. So this kind of builds on the approach that we're trying to take for our public art subcommittee. So, we've talked about sharing cool ideas about public art with our subcommittee. And what we've decided is that anyone who has an idea that they would like to share with the group, we can't just email it to everybody. We have to present it in a meeting. And so we have agreed to provide any of those links or information to Audrey in a timely manner before she needs to notice the agenda for the meeting each month. And so perhaps we could take the same approach for now on this topic, which is that anyone who has ideas, and maybe we strongly encourage everyone to come up with 1 or 2 ideas or resources a month to share with Audrey before she needs to notice the agenda for each monthly meeting. And perhaps at some point we identify a task force who can maybe pull together that information that we've compiled and figure out what to do with it, or figure out what steps to take.
Yes, thank you. And keep in mind, we need to keep these in the 2 silos are, the 2 silos are the task force, the commission, which direction we go with that. The other 2 silos are the fact that the subcommittees are already going to be working. Now that we've got this working, all the subcommittees should have this on their mind, running in the background as well. That when you're out there in the community, when you're on the internet or anything, you notice something that has to do with public art, or that has to do with an event and outreach that you think is appropriate. So we can start acting on that in our subcommittees. What the task force will be looking at is refining information from the national, international, national, regional, local resources, and refining the language to give us guidance to put into our strategic plan going forward as to how we are going to encourage diversity in the arts in our community. Does that make sense? So we're looking at a lot of different ways. And also, all of this funnels into accurately informing the public and putting the agendas together legally and accurately. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of things funneling together. Yes, Audrey.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was waving at someone through the window.
Oh, well, hello from all of us. Every time somebody leans forward, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So is that making sense to everyone? I still think, and chime in on this, I think the fastest ship would be the task force. But we have to limit ourselves to 4 in order to not have a quorum of the commission. We only want a quorum of the task force. So that would be interesting. Why don't we, okay, Emily, Audrey, can we do this? Can we give everybody a day to think about this and then do, what do they call those? Doogie polls or what is the poll you do?
Doodle poll.
Doodle poll, sorry. Doodle poll about who would be willing to serve. So we get that. And then find out, Bonnie's laughing at my doogie poll. I'm so sorry. And I see this is recording, great. Yeah, I'm teaching on 3 different formats. I'm going crazy. So yeah, let's go ahead and do a doodle poll. Who wants to serve? And then we will appoint the task force if everybody is okay with that. And then we can find a time for our first meeting that will feed into our agenda for the next December commission meeting. Yays, nays, noes, yeses. Emily seems.
Madam Chair, I'm trying to determine if appointing the commission is something, or sorry, the task force is something you need to do on the record. You certainly can, and it would be done. And then the doodle poll can be used for just administrative setting up the meeting. But
I don't know.
I don't know that it has to be on the record. It makes sense to me that that would be a function of a meeting. Let me look at the bylaws.
Yeah, would you look at those bylaws? I think, I don't think I think our bylaws allow it because we've had quite a bit of drift between the committees when somebody's gotten a job and they suddenly they don't have time to serve on 2 committees. We've replaced when we had interim commissions that filled seats that when someone resigned. And so there has been movement within the committees. I do think our bylaws allow for it.
Okay. As long as it's on the noticed agenda, who's on the subcommittee, I guess that's the primary concern.
Absolutely. I think because this has been such a broad discussion about whether to go to the task force, whether to go to the whole commission, giving people 24 hours to think about it and reevaluate their time might be, because this was unexpected, I think that might be fair. Sound okay? And everyone wants to serve, so that's good. Once again, that brings me back round to the topic of discussion. Do we want to just go back to it being an entire commission? I think what's going to happen is that what we'll find is that, oh, something just happened. That was weird. All of a sudden, I'm sorry, I'm getting a whole bunch of windows up all of a sudden. Okay, I'm back. So the thing that I worry about is that it will take us a lot longer to get this done if we don't have a task force that's razor focused on it, especially the language part. I just think it will take us a lot longer. How does everybody think about the poll, putting it together, and then of course noticing who has volunteered for the next meeting. Sound fair?
Madam Chair, if more than 4 commissioners volunteer, you'll have to appoint.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will. Then I, yeah. So is everybody okay with that? All right. So anything else to be brought up on this discussion before we leave and go to the next topic? Thank you. I think this is obviously going to be a really, really good place for us to go, considering the amount of engagement that we have. So we are to our committee reports. Speaking of committees, starting with the Initial Point Gallery Subcommittee, Bonnie. Do you want to lead that?
We had our last subcommittee meeting, I think, before our previous meeting, our committee or our commission meeting. But there is a new gallery show. It's the Pastel Society of the West Coast, the regional group. So it's a show of 13 of the 20 plus members who have work in the Initial Point Gallery. So there's really some beautiful things there. So if you get a chance, take a look. And then at the end of the month, we will, for the first part of December, we'll change out to the Idaho Arts Commission, the My Artpreneur program members from the Idaho Falls cohort, which includes about half of that group of 19 was from the Boise area. So it'll be a diverse show. Some of the people that you know was like Daniel Borup was part of that group. And several other Boise Treasure Valley artists. So that'll be a fun, and that show will hang until the latter part of January.
Okay, thank you. I haven't gotten a chance to go down, so I usually do, but anything else to ask? Any other questions for Bonnie? Okay, moving on to the Events and Outreach Subcommittee. With Maria not here, I'll give you a quick rundown on what we did there. Obviously, we're in kind of a holding pattern because of COVID with events and outreach. We did discuss how Art Week went, which, we discussed about how wonderful the volunteers have been that came and gave classes, and that we would invite the same people back next year, simply because this year it was limited. This year we were kind of quickly improvising on our delivery of Art Week. We also talked about how we can use this time as a development period for a cohesive artistic direction for the events that are already running in town. So, the holiday events, because this year we won't be able to do any of them. They're all canceled. So we have an advantage to be able to use this time to develop that creative direction that would drive even more people downtown, and also bring it to the next level as the city grows. So we, and Tom, feel free to jump in at any time with some details. We talked about the idea of it's Dickens carolers, because that's kind of the way that it's been done before, but having the Dickens carolers, having a quartet of singers be kind of the wandering minstrels of each event, so that we have some commonality between each event that defines it as a Meridian event. And in the meantime, we talked about Maria was going to reach out to some local costume designers to put some costumes together, and we were going to include blue and gold in the color scheme, because those are the colors of Meridian, which will look beautiful. And I love that they have blue. It's Hanukkah. You've got gold is just kind of an all together Christmas, all the holidays colors. So we wanted to interpolate that into the design. If we can't find anybody locally here, and keep in mind, this is a good time to do this kind of development because a lot of people are out of work in the arts. And so that's what we talked about. Tom, do you want to chime in?
Sure. Sorry, I had to step away for a second.
Okay.
The other aspect, and forgive me if you've mentioned this when I stepped away, was the exploration with Parks and Rec on how we can further strengthen a private-public partnership for executing some of a larger scale projects.
Yes, that's what I hope you were bringing up. He sent to us prior a link to, what was that link? What was the name of it? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, Tom.
Are you talking about the art?
The park?
Yeah, the art in the park. It's in our meeting notes, and I apologize, I don't have that in front of me. It's also in Blue Loop magazine, but it was in Denver. It's just outside of Denver, and it's how it references how the city of Denver and the surrounding communities are embracing private and public partnerships to make sure that, particularly in what's happening during COVID, that we are getting enough art to the public. And appropriate art to the public. What I was drawn to in the article with this is art in the park. So clearly it fits within certain criterias within our COVID world right now about being exterior and still being able to allow enough people to access it. And it was pretty informative. And I brought that to the subcommittee as inspiration and exploration, which then generated our conversation about private and public partnerships.
And it's a beautiful, immersive park experience. Very immersive. It's like living with art. You just walk into the nature picture and become part of it. I just thought it was so beautiful. Did everyone receive that? Could we have that link sent to the entire commission? Would that be?
Madam Chair, the link
Yeah.
is in the minutes of
Oh, okay.
the meeting, which is an attachment to the
Oh,
agenda.
that's right. I looked at that. And I've closed that window, unfortunately. But yeah, so if you look, if you go on this, if you go on the generated documents that she sent in our packet, that link is embedded in the meeting minutes for the Events and Outreach Committee. And it is truly inspirational. And I love that that it's a step towards this public-private partnering. So thank you. Can you think of anything else I've missed, Tom?
Yes, one other, and again, apologies if you mentioned it while I stepped away. We were going to, the subcommittee is going to develop potential partnerships with the private sector that we'd like to explore with Parks and Rec. And we're going to develop within the subcommittee criteria or specific asks then that we will explore with Parks and Rec. And that will happen. Our target for that was obviously after the holidays to really be in January and the start of 2021 to be able to go out once we establish our target private sector, then and some of the asks that we want, then we will, after the first of the year, start to approach them with presentations on how we feel a partnership can benefit both entities.
Yes, and Renee White came to us from Parks and Rec and gave a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I should have led with that. She came and gave us a wonderful presentation about what they're doing there in Parks and Rec, and also about all the events that Parks and Rec is producing as well, such as a movie night. And we're all in a holding pattern because we all don't know when they're coming back up. So this is a great time to be able to be doing this kind of work. So yeah, it's going to be a great partnership between the Meridian Arts Commission and Parks and Rec. I'm really excited about it. It's going to just make it easier and more efficient for us to make a more cohesive vision of the arts in Meridian and connect them to the activities. So it's exciting. Anything else we've missed? Oh, okay, that ends that. Moving on to the Public Art Committee.
Yeah, so we talked about a couple of things. We're moving forward with our Meridian mural series. So as you all know, we identified the Boise Co-op in Meridian, Meridian Cycles, and Sage Point Financial in downtown Meridian to be the locations for our murals. And so I'm very excited. Every time I drive past any of those, I look at the space and think someday there will be art there. So very exciting. So the RFQ for the artists for those murals has gone out. And so we started brainstorming all of the places that we can start sharing information about that to engage folks. And Audrey put together a Google spreadsheet so that we could all log who we had reached out to. And Audrey, I'm wondering if you can share that with the whole commission. It would be great to have, because everyone is sort of connected to the arts in different ways and knows different people in the Treasure Valley. So if everybody could help us spread the word, either talking with folks or sharing on your social media or sending some emails out to people that you know or people who you think would be interested, that would be super helpful, and then log it in that spreadsheet. So yeah, Audrey, if you wouldn't mind setting that out.
Madam Chair and Jessica, I think that I originally sent that to the whole commission.
Oh,
I think
great.
the whole commission has that Google spreadsheet.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, so you remember seeing it, Leslie?
Mhm,
You
I
said,
do.
okay, great. So yeah, if everyone could kind of help get the word out, the deadline is December 7th. So we have a little less than a month left. And then as a subcommittee, we will discuss the RFQs in our January meeting, no, our December meeting, I believe. And then I guess it has to be, does it have to be approved by the whole commission? And then we'll get the word out in January about who we've selected.
Yes.
Okay, so.
All right.
So yeah, so help us get the word out. The other thing quickly that we discussed was, well, we had 3 items on the agenda. So we also started talking about the public art plan. So we're trying to figure out what kind of help we're going to enlist in writing our public art plan, talking about whether we can use the skills that fellow commissioners have to help us with this, or if that's not allowed. So we're looking into that, and we'll discuss that in our meeting next week. So we might, we're moving forward with trying to figure out how to put this plan together. So stay tuned for that. And then we also started to discuss options for our public art project. So through the Meridian Art in Public Spaces Ordinance, we get funding every year, $50,000 a year, plus any funding that we roll over from the previous year for public art. So in FY20, we put pieces up at Renaissance Park and Champion Park. And so we're discussing what our options are for FY21 and how we want to spend that money. So hopefully we will have some more information in our meeting next week and maybe come to some conclusions about how we want to spend that money. So and then so stay tuned for that. And we also just discussed briefly our traffic box series for 2020. We completed that. We will have, I think, 5 traffic boxes for FY21 through our funding. And we will also need to renew our repository of pieces that we select from for our traffic boxes starting next year. So that happens every couple of years. So I think that's everything. Did I miss anything? Anyone want to chime in? I think that's everything.
Can I chime in on one thing that I think connects up to the link that Tom sent, is the consideration of you know, using some inspiration from that piece to, yeah, to look at maybe a couple of installations that might be immersive. It might be
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think that's a great idea. I think that was put on by a private entity, right? So we could discuss how we could, yeah, so we could discuss how we could partner with a private entity. We have a lot of stuff going on this year already. I do think it's a wonderful idea, but I hadn't looked at it before you brought it up, but I just kind of clicked on it as you guys were discussing it a couple of minutes ago, and it looks really cool. I think that's something that we could certainly discuss, but a bigger endeavor that maybe would be better for after we have completed our public art plan and after our mural series is completed. So, but that's something that we can certainly discuss in our subcommittee meeting next week. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great idea.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Any questions for Jessica on the, sorry, I've got a lot on my plate today, for the, with anything to regard the Public Art Committee? If not, I am going to be moving to the final item agenda, which is adjournment. And I'm sorry, rehearsal is starting without me in the background, and it just, it splits my focus. I'm so sorry. Let me get back to my agenda here. So our next meeting is December 10th. I realize it's a really busy time for everyone as the holidays approach. So hopefully we'll have a quorum, and we will have our meeting then, and we'll work in the meantime on the things that we've discussed today that will be ongoing in between the meeting. So we will consider a motion to adjourn. Can you guys hear that music? Band's warming up. My brain is moving elsewhere.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Tom seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, you guys, for a good discussion, and I'll see you next month. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.